right, so here we are inside of Lightroom. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the filter on. I've went through and put 3 stars. If you don't know, in Lightroom, you can label your stuff as I go through and make what I call my first pass of kind of a little bit of correction, white balance, cropping, things like that. And then I go through and start stylizing and such. But I always star them 1. Actually, I go through, my first pass is starring them 1 of the ones that I want to keep out of everything that I took. So that helps me stay a little bit organized and helps me to not be so overwhelmed by so many photos being taken. Let's dive in. Let's go to the first one that we looked at earlier. So instead of going and editing every photo and blah, 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 I'm going to show you, kind of scroll down and show you what my settings are. And then you can try to match and go back and pause the video for a second, go to your Lightroom program. If you don't have Lightroom, whatever editing software, it should be close to this. But if you want Lightroom, Photoshop, and Premiere Pro, which is a video editing, it's what I edit all my video stuff on. I actually have a link down below that will give you some cool little discounts and features. So click that, help support the channel. Enough said, let's move on. In Lightroom, the way that it's organized is kind of you work your way down, just like layers in Photoshop. When you look at the layers, you're seeing the top and you're seeing it flat like this on the screen. But if you think of it as it being a cake off to the side and being more 3-dimensional, you have to look down from the top of the cake and look through every layer to actually see the bottom. So you have base layers. So this is kind of the way Lightroom is set up. And in just a second, we're going to show key features that have just come out that are pretty cool, that may make it where if you cannot afford a decent flash or a good flash, that you can kind of get by with what there is. And I actually use that on this. So actually, I think I used it maybe on every single photo just because it just recently came out and I was so excited to just kind of play. I mean, it was a new toy and I didn't have to pay anything extra for it. Yeah, I'm gonna play with that. In the whole cloudy situation, if you don't understand white balance, you know, or you don't know that a warm and cool, that's the 2 spectrums on there. So to your left, you have warm, to your right, you have cool. And so where you want to set your white balance is where you want the image to be read of that temperature, is pretty much what it is. So that's what this temp means right here. So if I want the image to be cooler, you can see all of a sudden she's turning blue because I'm showing cool temperatures. If I want it to be warmer, you can see all of a sudden she's hot, 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 and too warm. So what I have found in cloudy situations is that when it's cool, now on this, when the number is lower, higher, it's kind of strange, but you have to think about it opposite on your camera. If you're wanting to read close to the temperature of a sky that is like this, when you're in shadow or you're like a cloudy situation, the temperature is cooler. So you have to crank up your Kelvin or your K. You'll see it on your white balance settings. It'll have a K and you can go up to about 6. I prefer it to be a little lower because then it makes the cold image that I'm trying to read to be true white. If I do it a little lower, like it is right here, about say 5.5, whatever, Kelvin, 5,473 Kelvin, it will make the image actually look a little warmer instead of a cooler temperature. You have to replay that back a few times because it's hard to get, especially when you start introducing flash. Now, if you have flash and you're in the middle of a daytime situation, whatever, you can set your camera to the flash setting and you will be fine. But the reason gels and things like that are so important is because your background is going to be what your background is, unless you have this new feature on Lightroom, which is pretty cool. So you can see my temperature here is what it is. The tint's a little different because at 0, you can see she kind of looks, I mean, her green hair pops a little bit, but I didn't want that. I wanted actually, I'm looking at these buildings and a little bit on her skin. Being a white person, your skin tends to be a little red, and you'll have to do this no matter how good of a photographer you are. You will have to at some point, if you really want to dial in on your stuff, you'll have to adjust your photo. You can be professional, do it all the time, and still need to adjust a little bit because so many scenarios and things that could happen while you're out there shooting. It's all right. We live in a digital world where Anybody can be a photographer. So what does contrast do? You see how that softened it up, made everything kind of bland? If you shoot video at all and you have a log setting, that's kind of what a lot of it does. It takes out the contrast. Put that back to 0, but I like a little more. What it does is begins to separate the lights and the darks. That's what contrast is. Separate the lights and the darks. And it wouldn't even look, I don't know where I just had it, but I mean, that looks good to me right there. She was wearing darker clothes. That's kind of her style. Also, bringing up more contrast begins to make those black lines in the back pop a little bit because you have a light and a dark in the background. And so when you put in contrast, it actually begins to separate it even more. So it's kind of cool. Now, highlights, we can see how that kind of blows out the sky. It's a cloudy day. It's going to happen anyways, but I like to bring it down a little bit, make it where her hair is actually darker and stands out more because she is the subject of the photo. So that means she needs to be the center. There doesn't need to be any distractions or anything pulling the person's eye away from the subject. That's why I put this in the background, because it's not anything distracting, but it's something that gives dimension to the photo, but is not in focus and nothing crazy that would be distracting from her. So you can see the shadows. If it was down, it'd be like kind of, a really different type of photo, but I like to bring them up because I don't want her face and her eye sockets to be dark, which is also why I introduced the flash. I'm trying to brighten it up a little bit. So then I bring down the black. She was wearing black. You can tell a lot from a conversation with somebody or the photos they send you. Like I said a minute ago, send you photos that they like, that they're interested in, that they want to look like. You can get a lot of feel of who they are or how they see themselves by the images that they send you. So that's very important. So you can see right here on the texture and clarity and all that other stuff, not messed with at all. Could I? Sure. But then look how the photo looks. Now that's at 100%, and I'll tell you why I didn't mess with any of this stuff. So could I do vibrance? Yeah, of course. I can make things pop a little bit. But as soon as you start jacking with that, you can see all of a sudden now you got some chromatic aberrations, which is what it's called, this purple glow thing around something out of focus. So I didn't mess with it. Could I bring up the saturation? Yes. But when I do all this stuff on this, it's doing it to the entire photo. Now you can look at all this right here, nothing. All these right here, nothing. Color grading, nothing. Can you do stuff like that? Absolutely. Whatever your taste is, perfectly fine. I want to show you something here that I use a lot in my real estate editing process, is if you hold Option and you click on this masking, hold Option, click the masking, look at it. So if you don't have the masking on, what the white is, if you know from Photoshop at all, white is reveal. So whatever is white in this white will be sharpened to the maximum of whatever I set. You can see a little preview right here. I don't want that. What I want is outlines of everything to be sharpened. I don't want her skin to be sharpened. Why? Because skin needs to be soft. It needs to be kind of, for lack of a better word, smeared. Could you do that here? Yeah, probably so. And things will smooth out quite a bit, but I don't want things that smooth. I want to have more control than that. I don't want it to be all over the photo. I want very specific things. And very specific things to be sharp. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a minute. Crop, vignetting. It's kind of a cool word. I don't know, to your taste. Now, let me help you out with something. A little bit on the edges is fine. If you do your photos like this, listen to me, I'm trying to help you. If you make your photos like this, you look like an amateur. Unless you are going for a specific style. Now, you can say, well, that's just my style. Well, that's fine, but you'll stay in the amateur zone forever. So let me explain to you what I did in this image. So the background, I love the way the background looks. I shot it that way. If you don't know, underexpose when you shoot a portrait just a little bit. Now, this is how flash will help you. If you're doing natural light, that's fine. If that's the way you want to do things, it is a cheaper route. It is less of a headache to bring lights and tote them around. You saw me in the clip earlier. I had it on my shoulder. I had to carry it everywhere I went. It's a headache a little bit, but it's worth it because I can make her pop from the background and underexpose, but expose my flash properly, and she actually pops from the background and doesn't blend in with it. Well, now Lightroom has come out with this. So look at this. I'm going to show you all of my settings on here. You can see I have under one thing, you can do multiple things. So I have this, which is a select the background. This blows my mind that this is even possible, but you can select the background and you can see what I did. I brought, where is it at? Oh, the negative. So I didn't want the background to be involved. And then I got a brush after her eyes, and I put different brush strokes. And so what I did on her eyes is I push Z. Over here is a setting that you can have it at for whatever percentage you want. And so when you push Z, it'll automatically zoom in to that percentage. Hold down spacebar and it will grab. Click your mouse or your pad, whatever you're doing. What I wanted to do here was I wanted to get her eyes, but I wanted them to be a little brighter. I wanted her skin to be softer. So how did I do that? Without having to go into Photoshop and do a bunch of editing. So my main goal is to make your life easier. The way I have made my life easier is to do a little bit of skin. Somebody who needs a lot of skin retouching, yes, Photoshop is so much easier to go into and do it and get it done. And you could just boom, 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 it's done. And then you hit Command Save and it's right back into Lightroom. It's pretty awesome how they work together. But so what I've done here on this is I have taken clarity and a little bit of texture away. Why did I do that? So look at this. This is actually what her skin looks like, okay? Do you see that? That right there is actually the way that she looks. And especially when you start doing your different styles and your edits and things, sometimes it can make the skin look a little off-colored, or it can exaggerate the pores in the skin a lot more. So I don't want to do that. I want to soften it up. Look at that. That was in 3 seconds. I was gonna say 1 second, but it was more than that. And then I unclick off of that, and now I have a background. I mean, now I have a soft skin that took me seconds to do. This blows my mind. So this one right here, let's go to the next one. So now I didn't do over the top, but I did a small little that matched the sky that was already there, because it looked kind of rainy. It looked kind of gloomy a little bit. So I wanted there to be some sort of like rainbow, like it had just rained or something like that. So I just put a sky replacement. I did this in Photoshop. So I was talking about, you open it up in Photoshop, you can search in the help bar and say sky replacement, and it will take you right to where you can do it. And you can pick a sky, or you can take your own skies and import it. It's pretty cool, pretty amazing. You can see, look at all this. I didn't do a whole lot of editing on this image, y'all. That was straight out of camera besides the sky replacement. No tone curves, no nothing. Now, how did I get this image then? That looks like it's been edited. Even zoom in on her face. Because I was able to do what I needed to do in the camera. Now, why am I saying that? Because it is a huge crutch for you to just shoot and hope and you not really understand your camera or your flash. You need, if you want to get paid more, you have to know more. They're paying you for you being an expert. So here's the next one. She is standing there, and I actually have a full body one too that is right, that I made her put her leg out, pop her leg out a little bit. She's got the same pose, but just a little bit closer. So you can see the lines behind it. Now I did some editing obviously on this one, brought down some highlights, but I wasn't too worried about the sky, which highlights is usually sky stuff, or if there's a reflection on the skin, it'll help a little bit. I brought up the contrast, my exposure. I wanted her to be a little higher, bring the background a little down lower, and this is how you do that. So I always go through and I lighten up the eyes a little bit, give them a little bit of a higher exposure. You can see you don't want it like that, but you want something that looks like, and I think actually for this image, I didn't even use the flash. I turned the flash off because I didn't need it, because the background in her was so greatly exposed. I didn't even worry about it. I'm going to demonstrate right now. I know this is a little bit longer of a video, but this stuff is pretty cool. I'm going to demonstrate right now what this looks like when you select the background. So you are in the mask. So you can click right here. So when you push the plus sign, you can select all of this stuff. So when I'm doing eyes, I do the radial gradient. When I'm trying to make something down here, I want it to be a little less pulling to the eye. I just do another one, linear gradient. I'm taking this right here and I'm bringing down the exposure just a little bit, because I want the subject to be the center of your focus. I don't want anything to distract you. And then when I bring down this exposure, all of a sudden you don't see that anymore. So now let's try a different one. Select background. It immediately excluded her. Now, sometimes it has issues, especially if it's something like if she would have been wearing a lighter color, it would have been really hard for it to differentiate, but it did really good because it didn't capture her skin, which was really close to the background. So what can I do? If I'm wanting more of a dramatic with her in the light, now you can't go too far. Obviously, it'll start looking a little different, but that's still not bad. It cut her out very well. So I can make that a little more dramatic of an image if I want. So let's go to the next one. So what did I do here? I got her skin. How did I do that? I went just like this. I put a plus sign, says add. I went here, select subject, and there it is. It was literally that easy. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you got something from today's video. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and subscribe to the channel so you can see every time I put out new videos. Thank you, and God bless you.